Y'all ready? It's time to talk ball with Spunky Spectrum. Let's ride! Ow. Woke up in the morning, coffee in my hand, another season about to start. I'm the fantasy man, scouting sleepers, crunching numbers late at night, building rosters that gon' shine under them lights. From rookie watch to big revenge, I see it all, stacking points while the league's watching me ball. Best ball drafting, no waivers, just pure skill. I'm taking shots, watch the whole league getting killed. Yeah, the grind don't stop, the picks stay high. When the money's on the line, I connect the dots. We're talking fantasy football, best ball drafting deep. Spunky Spectrum spinning, put a league to sleep. 15 grand on DraftKings, cashed it like a king. Now the whole damn country know I run this thing. Yeehaw, raise them up, another W in the books. Fantasy king, got the trophies and the looks. From the podcast mic to the big check in my hand, this is Spunky Spectrum, boys, the fantasy man.
Yo, Big D here to talk about the U.S.'s 2-0 win. Yes, 2-0 win over Australia in the second half that looked more like a rugby match. Driving the top production, Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. Of course, got the Pulisic jersey on, just got it, so I figured it'd be a good time to bring it on. And you know what? The U.S., for one, makes history because the U.S. for the first time in its World Cup history qualifies for the knockout round with one game remaining, something we have never done before. And, instant analysis, the first game against Paraguay was a statement. This game was a test of will. Especially that second half when Australia really came out of play. Physical half, looked more like an Australian rules or rugby match. But in the end, I think the 12th man in Seattle made a difference today. Looking at what Australia did against Turkey in Vancouver, I think a lot of us knew that Australia would try and sit behind the ball and play on the counter, make it very tight defense. And there were questions more about whether Pulisic would play. Well, it turned out Pulisic didn't play, and Ricardo Pepi played. But it ultimately didn't matter because the U.S. was able to break through. The U.S. played more or less a 3-5-2 at the start with Pepi and Balogun, but in the end, I think the U.S. out-willed, out-tough, and really outworked Australia early, middle, and late in this game. U.S. created, 62 possession, not a lot of shots on goal, but the U.S. controlled the game in the midfield. Flo Balogun was big, really set up the first goal, which was an own goal. In many ways, I think this game shows what the U.S. could do. Win a game where we dazzle in front of the LA crowd. And then tonight, when grinding out game, every team is going to have one of those games where they grind out a win, whether it be in penalties, whether it be in extra time, whether it be one of those games. And the U.S. passed its first test with flying colors tonight. I think Flo Balogun was big. I think Weston McKennie, hello from Russia. Whoa, that's interesting. What time is it in Moscow, St. Petersburg, or Sochi? Sochi, but Weston. I thought Weston McKennie was everywhere tonight. Showing up right wing, helping out the midfield, helping out the defense. I think Weston McKennie played a great game and showing his versatility and his his speed, his work rate everywhere again tonight. I think Ricardo Pepi, for replacing Pulisic, did a lot of hard work, defense work, maybe not the playmaker like Pulisic, but a lot of hard work and a lot of gritty. Flo Balogun was big, hold-up play. Saw him get into physical game, and I'll talk more about Australia's physical. It's useless. In that first half, I was disappointed with Australia, even from me. I thought Australia would try and hit us hard, a little like what happened in the friendly in October, but I think the U.S. really outworked Australia that first half. I mean, can really set up their own goal. If not for Cameron Burgess putting the ball in the back of his net, I think there's a very high likelihood Pepe would have scored. And just like the first game, own goal, and late goal in the first half from Alex Freeman. I'm not sure how many people have paid attention to Alex Freeman and Villarreal this year, but I think he's going to earn himself a big money move somewhere with what he's done. Not just cross, not just defensively, but offensively scored a goal. It was originally ruled offside, but since Freeman was behind the last Australian, not in an offside position, the goal eventually stood. U.S. went up 2-0, completing more or less a dominating first half. Second half, very different half. The Australian manager Popovich made 3 changes. U.S. I think Balogun had a half decent opportunity early in the second half, but the U.S. really didn't need to create. What the U.S. did, and for that matter, it seemed like Australia was more or less okay sitting back, but then came forward. But you could, honestly, I think it was much too little, much too late. And I think Australia only mustered 3 attempts for a 0.32 goal expected goals, but the second half turned into a street fight. I mean, they were multiple subs. I mean, Anthony Robinson picked up a card in the 56th minute. U.S. waited quite a long time before making changes, bringing in Bernhardt for Pepe, then Trusty Scally came on. There were 1 or 2 moments where it looked like Anthony Robinson was this close to getting sent off, and it's like, maybe we should get him. And then, but, there was a moment, I think in the 87, 88, in the 86, where Harry Souttar and Flo Balogun really got into it. It looked like Flo was going to go after the Australian defender, but both guys more or less ended the battle, and the referee, Felix, ended up giving both men a yellow. And then I think in the very same sequence, Jacob Italiano picked up a yellow for getting involved with Trusty. So 3 guys were booked. Then Chris Richards got the most obvious yellow card we ever seen for stop and attack. And then maybe one of the oddest sequences I've ever seen in football, when Felix Wild, the German referee, went down in stoppage time for a cramp. Everybody talks about the hydration breaks and how warm these games are. I don't think I've ever seen a referee come in a cramp. I know it's happened, but still odd. But luckily, Phil was able to continue. Hello, secret. Yes, 2-0, baby. 2-0. See, well, oh, I love these spam calls now, but it feels weird because the first game was about the U.S. Queen. This game was more about the U.S. surviving. I think we knew Australia would be more aggressive, be more try and make this game into a brawl, and they did. But the U.S. stood firm, and for the first time since September, the fall, the U.S. gets a clean sheet, which is a great confidence boost. And I'll admit, the U.S. doesn't have the best defense. We don't have the best goal. We don't have Thibaut Courtois on goal. We don't have Marquinhos or a great center back like that. We don't have William Saliba. But this U.S. team can walk, and I think what this game showed tonight is what these guys do. Chris Rich won a number of headers. Freeman, Ream just for his leadership, ability to pass the ball. Tyler Adams was everywhere again tonight. I love the way that where is he? I love the way Malik Tillman played. I thought he was creative, really positive, really creating a lot and showing why he should be, and maybe gets a big money move elsewhere via Leverkusen. But people are going to say, "What do you think about the U.S. defending some?" Every team's going to have to defend. I'm surprised Australia didn't come this aggressively early, but and maybe the fact that the U.S. played a lot of that Australia-friendly match without Pulisic gave us an insight. But this game ended up being chippy, but the U.S. was able to stand firm, and that zero for the Australian team will give the U.S. defenders all sorts of confidence going to that third game. And for American soccer football, not just winning, but making the round of 32 with one game left is something that we've never seen. This happens to Italy, this happens to Argentina, France, the Netherlands, England, Germany. The U.S. is not supposed to be advancing this early with one game left, but maybe getting a home World Cup helps. Seattle's one of the best soccer football environments. We know what the Seahawks and Sounders do, and it's just crazy what fans do. I remember some of those balls ending in Puget Sound, thinking the fans cheered as loud, if not louder, for a U.S. goal kick compared to a goal. Those goals. Remember the Beastquake in Seattle? Well, those goals probably registered on the Richter scale tonight. And so, U.S. with 6 points, top of Group D. Depending on what happens between Turkey and Paraguay at 11 o'clock tonight, the U.S. might be winning Group D or needing a draw in LA on Thursday. The question is going to be, does the U.S. change guys? I would think no matter what happens, there will be a rotation. The U.S. picked up 3 yellow cards. Flo Balogun, Anthony Robinson, and Chris Richards. Of course, Tyler Adams picked up a yellow card in the first game. So I think there's a chance none of those guys sees the pitch. Pulisic now gets 6 more days to rest his calf, so he may be ready for the knock round if that. But I think the U.S. I really think Turkey is going to come out full guns blazing tonight. Turkey is better than what they showed, but maybe Paraguay is better. I mean, who knows what happens in Santa Clara? But in the end, U.S. got the 3 points, and that's all that matters right now. So just wanted to spend 15-20 minutes talking about the U.S. Australia World Cup game. Probably be more content. Driving the Top Productions, Spunky Spectrum Sports. But this is Dylan signing off for now. Now, getting ready to celebrate the U.S. 2-0 win over Australia. Good day, man.